Caleb Foster intended to drop his daughter off at preschool as usual, but a simple mistake sent little Lily to the wrong place, and unknowingly brought Ava Harrison into his life. A busy father, a devoted teacher, and an adorable little girl. Could fate be setting the stage for a love story born from this mishap? If this love story speaks to your heart, one simple subscription means the world to us. Help us reach our 1,000 subscriber milestone. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're watching us from, and please like this video to support the channel. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Caleb Foster is the formidable CEO of Foster Enterprises. He is a devoted single father to his young daughter Lily. He has locked his heart away ever since his wife's betrayal years ago. Caleb Foster's morning had already spiraled into chaos. The shrill ring of his phone had jolted him awake at 5:30 a.m., his assistant reminding him of the critical board meeting scheduled for later that day. Between reviewing last-minute reports and fielding urgent emails, he barely had time to breathe, let alone prepare his 4-year-old daughter for daycare. Now, as he maneuvered his sleek black Audi through the congested streets of New York, he glanced at Lily in the back seat through the rearview mirror. She was softly humming a tune, her tiny hands clutching her stuffed rabbit. "All right, sweetheart," he said, pulling up to the daycare. "We're here." With that, he handed her off to a waiting staff member, barely sparing a second glance as he rushed back to his car. He had no idea he had just made a terrible mistake. Ava Harrison had always believed that children had an instinct for people's true nature. So when Lily Foster walked into Little Wonder's daycare, gripping her stuffed rabbit like a lifeline, Ava knew immediately. This little girl didn't belong here. The first red flag? She wasn't on the student list. The second? The man who had dropped her off had practically sprinted out the door without bothering to double-check a single detail. Frowning, Ava crouched down to Lily's level. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's your name?" Lily's big brown eyes flickered with hesitation before she whispered, "Lily Foster." The girl was clearly nervous. "Well, Lily, it looks like we weren't expecting you today. Do you know your teacher's name?" Lily shook her head, squeezing the rabbit tighter. Ava pulled out the emergency contact list and dialed the listed guardian number. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. She sighed. This was exactly why she hated dealing with high-profile parents. They always assumed someone else would handle things for them. Realizing she had no immediate way of reaching Lily's father, Ava softened. "How about this? You stay with me today, and we'll figure things out when your daddy comes back, okay?" Lily nodded slowly. And so, Ava spent the entire day with Lily, helping her with arts and crafts, reading stories, and even sitting with her during lunch when she refused to eat alone. By the time the afternoon rolled around, Lily had opened up, laughing and playing with the other children. Ava, however, was not looking forward to the inevitable confrontation with the man who had left his daughter behind without a second thought. Caleb strode into the daycare with a controlled. He had barely made it through his last meeting when a voicemail from an unknown number had come through, one that made his stomach drop. "Mr. Foster, I am Ava Harrison from Little Wonder's daycare. Your daughter was mistakenly brought to our facility this morning. Since there was a business card with your name in her bag, I have been trying to contact you all day. Please call me back immediately." How could this have happened? His assistant had confirmed Lily's daycare drop-off location the night before. As he stepped inside, his sharp gaze scanned the room until it landed on a woman standing with Lily, watching him with an expression that was both unimpressed and challenging. Caleb immediately recognized the frustration in her eyes. She wasn't happy with him. Neither was Lily. The little girl pouted as soon as she saw him. "Daddy, you put me in the wrong school." Caleb exhaled, kneeling in front of her. "I know, sweetheart. That was Daddy's mistake. I'm sorry." Lily huffed, crossing her tiny arms. "I like it here." He barely had time to process that before the woman Ava cleared her throat. "You must be Caleb Foster," she said, her voice even but edged with disapproval. The man who didn't bother answering his phone all day. His head snapped up, brows furrowing. I had back-to-back meetings. And I had a scared little girl who didn't know why she was here. Tell me, Mr. Foster, what exactly was so important that you couldn't check your phone? Caleb felt an unfamiliar pang of guilt. I appreciate you taking care of her. But this was an accident. It won't happen again. No, it won't. Because next time, I won't just call, I'll report it to Child Services. His jaw tightened. No one talked to him like that. But before he could fire back a retort, Lily reached for Ava's hand, looking up at her with complete trust. Lily was comfortable with this woman. More than that, she liked her. The moment Caleb carried Lily out of Little Wonder's daycare, she made her displeasure clear. "Daddy, I want to come back here tomorrow," she declared, her tiny hands gripping his suit sleeve. Caleb frowned as he fastened his child's seatbelt. "Lily, this isn't your daycare. Daddy just got a little distracted today, so there was a mix-up, sweetheart. But I like it here. Miss Ava is nice." Caleb exhaled, already feeling a headache coming on. "I'm sure she is, but you have friends at your real daycare." Lily shook her head, her curls bouncing. "Miss Ava played with me, and she read my favorite book twice." He still wasn't entirely sure what to make of Ava Harrison. Yes, she had taken care of Lily in his absence, but she had also called him out in a way no one else ever dared to. And yet, something about the way Lily clung to the idea of returning gave him pause. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him with those wide brown eyes, the ones that always made him weak. "Please, Daddy, just one more day." Caleb sighed, running a hand through his hair. Just one more day. The next morning, Caleb found himself back at Little Wonder's daycare, leading a beaming Lily through the doors. Ava looked up from where she was kneeling, beside a group of toddlers, her gaze landing on him with a flicker of surprise. "Back so soon?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. Caleb straightened his tie. "Lily insisted." Ava smirked. "Smart girl." He opened his mouth to respond, maybe with a sarcastic remark, but Lily was already running toward the play area, leaving them alone. A beat of silence stretched between them, before Caleb finally spoke, his voice measured. "I'm letting her stay for a few days." Ava tilted her head, crossing her arms. "And you trust me with that?" "I trust my daughter. And she seems to trust you." Something flickered in Ava's expression. "Fair enough." For the next few days, Caleb kept his distance. He arrived at the same time every morning, dressed in crisp suits, barely saying more than a polite nod to Ava before leaving. But he always watched, and what he saw began to chip away at his initial perception of her. One afternoon, he arrived early to pick up Lily, and found Ava sitting with the children in a reading circle. Lily was curled up beside her, listening with rapt attention as Ava read Goodnight Moon. But it wasn't just the reading. It was the way Ava engaged them, the way she gave each child attention and warmth. Caleb wasn't sure why he arrived at Little Wonder's daycare earlier than usual. He told himself it was just a free moment in his schedule. But as he stepped inside, pausing at the doorway, he realized it had nothing to do with time. It had everything to do with her. And there, nestled against Ava's side, was Lily, her tiny hands gripping the fabric of Ava's sweater, as if she had always belonged there. He stood there, watching as Ava brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face, her touch gentle, watching as Lily leaned into her warmth, utterly content. A warmth spread through his chest. For years, Caleb had kept his world controlled, orderly, and yet, he felt something shift, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. He had spent the past 4 years raising Lily alone, ensuring she had everything she needed. Except this: the warmth of a mother's embrace, the security of being held. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, he found himself doing something he never did: looking her up. It didn't take long to find an article buried in the archives. Tragic car accident claims lives of Harrison family. Only daughter survives. Caleb stared at the screen. His pulse remained steady, but his mind was spinning. Ava had lost her entire family in a single moment, and yet, instead of breaking, she had built a life caring for children, offering them the love she had lost. He wasn't sure what unsettled him more, the weight of her past, or the realization that he was allowing himself to care. One rainy afternoon, he had arrived to pick up Lily earlier than usual, but upon getting there, his car had broken down, so he called assistant to take her home first. Inside the daycare, Ava had been cleaning up for the day when she saw him standing in the rain, inspecting the engine, frustration clear on his face. Before she could think twice, she stepped outside with an umbrella. "You'll catch pneumonia if you keep standing there like that," she called out. Caleb looked up, rain dripping from his dark hair, his suit already soaked. "Car trouble?" she asked, tilting her head. He exhaled. "Apparently?" She hesitated for only a second before offering, "Come inside. At least until the tow truck arrives." He looked like he wanted to refuse, but then he glanced at the sky, sighed, and followed her in. Inside, the daycare was quiet, the children already gone for the day. Ava handed him a towel and a steaming cup of tea. "I don't drink tea," Caleb muttered. Ava smirked, sitting across from him. "You do now." For the first time in weeks, they sat together. "Your tow truck is taking quite a while," Ava commented, glancing at the clock. Caleb checked his phone and nodded. "They just texted. The driver got delayed with another call, but he should be here in 15 minutes. An awkward silence fell between them, as if neither wanted to acknowledge that their unexpected moment together was coming to an end. "Thank you," Caleb finally said, his voice softer than usual. "For the tea. And the company." Ava smiled and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's nothing. Though next time, maybe don't try to break your car just to see me," she teased. He chuckled, a rare sound that made Ava's heart skip. Before he could respond, headlights flashed across the window as a tow truck pulled into the parking lot. "That's my cue," Caleb said, rising from his chair. He hesitated for a moment, as if wanting to say something more. Instead, he simply nodded. "I'll see you tomorrow morning." "Right, tomorrow," Ava replied. As he stepped out into the damp evening air, Caleb turned back one last time. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of connection neither was ready to name. Ever since that afternoon he had felt something shift, something uncontrollable. He found himself thinking about her at odd moments, wondering what she was doing, how her day was going, and he often arrived early to pick up Lily, just for the chance to see her a little longer. But as the days passed, Caleb suddenly found himself remembering his past, and that fear crept back over him once again. If he had once lingered at the daycare for an extra 5 minutes just to watch Lily play, now he was in and out in 60 seconds. The warmth that had once existed between them was gone. The quiet smiles were no longer there, and yet she never confronted him about it. Ava had never been one to chase after people who didn't want to stay. She had learned that lesson the hard way, when life had taken everyone she loved from her in one cruel instant. So when Caleb started keeping his distance, she didn't demand an explanation. She simply accepted it. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt, because somewhere along the way, without meaning to, without even realizing it, she had fallen for him. She had fallen for the way he looked at Lily, not just as a father, but as a man who wanted to give his daughter the world. She had fallen for the way his voice softened when he said, "Thank you" that night in the daycare, as if kindness was something foreign to him, but precious all the same. She had fallen for the man who hid his heart behind steel walls, but, for a brief moment, had let her peek inside. And now, he was shutting her out. She stopped staying late in the afternoons when she knew Caleb might arrive. She avoided meeting his eyes whenever he did come. If he wanted distance, she would give it to him, but someone else noticed the shift. The little girl was sharp, perceptive in a way most adults underestimated. "Miss Ava?" Lily said one afternoon, her small hands gripping the hem of Ava's sweater. "Why doesn't Daddy smile at you anymore?" The question hit Ava harder than she expected. She forced a smile, kneeling down to meet Lily's innocent gaze. "Oh, sweetheart, your daddy's just very busy. But he used to laugh when he saw you. And now he just looks sad." Ava's heart squeezed. Caleb had spent his entire life making calculated decisions. Yet, as he sat on the edge of Lily's bed, tucking her in for the night, he realized he had never felt more lost. Lily clutched her stuffed rabbit close, blinking up at him with sleepy eyes. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" She hesitated for a moment before asking, "Do you love Miss Ava?" His entire body tensed at the question, as if she had just exposed a truth he wasn't ready to face. "Why would you ask that, Lily?" he said carefully. "Because when you used to see her, you smiled, but now you don't. And she looks sad too." This was his 4-year-old daughter, the person who saw straight through him, even when he refused to see himself. And she was right. Caleb had been avoiding the truth, avoiding his feelings. Because the truth was, he did love Ava. He loved the way she cared for Lily. He loved the way she challenged him. He loved the way her laughter made the world feel lighter. But most of all, he loved who he was when he was with her. And he had been a fool for running away. He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to Lily's forehead. "Thank you, baby girl." "For what?" she yawned. "For reminding me what really matters." The next morning, Caleb didn't go to work. Instead, he went straight to Little Wonder's daycare. Ava was standing near a group of kids, reading a picture book aloud. When she looked up and saw him, her expression shuddered instantly. "Caleb," she said cautiously, closing the book. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," he said. "In private," Ava added, her voice guarded. "I need to say this here." A few children gasped dramatically. Some of the staff exchanged looks. "I was afraid," he admitted, stepping closer. "Afraid of what it meant to care about you. Afraid of what would happen if I let you in." "But you were right. I was running. I was convincing myself that keeping my distance was the safest choice. But then I realized something." She swallowed. "What?" Caleb exhaled, his entire world narrowing down to her. "I'm more afraid of living without you. I have feelings for you. And I don't want to run away anymore. Will you give us a chance?" A single tear slipped down her cheek. As she looked at Caleb, standing there completely open, completely raw, she knew this wasn't just a man who had finally let his guard down. This was the man she had been waiting for all along. With a shaky breath, she whispered, "You idiot." Caleb blinked. What?" She laughed through her tears and took a step forward, wrapping her arms around him. And for the first time in his life, Caleb Foster knew he had everything he'd ever needed. 1 year later, the sound of waves crashing against the shore filled the air as Ava leaned against Caleb's shoulder, their hands intertwined. Their wedding had been a beautiful, intimate ceremony by the ocean, surrounded by the people they loved most. And now, as they sat on the back porch of their beach house, watching Lily chase seagulls along the sand, Ava placed a hand on her growing belly. Ava smiled, leaning into him. "A little brother for Lily. A perfect addition to our family." Caleb kissed her temple, pulling her closer. Their daughter's laughter echoed through the air, and the unborn child moved beneath his hand. In that moment, he truly felt happy. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss another heartwarming tale that reminds us all, sometimes, the most beautiful love stories come from the most unexpected places.